Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by DV Email. Bill you more? Alrighty then. While I was writing up my last post here, I remembered a really fun moment of malicious compliance from a number of years ago. There's this website called SSLlabs.com where people can check the security of their website. It checks things like version of SSL/TLS being used, certificate validity, etc. The details are boring and not necessary for this post. I was working as a site security consultant for a large public firm, and one of the senior people got it into his head that nothing less than an A+ rating for their site would do from the test above. Some security details are important, some are trivial, and some are more political than anything else. Before the current version of secure traffic, TLS 1.2 or 1.3 if you're an early adopter, was common, many sites ran version 1.1. SSLlabs.com decided at some point that the highest rating a 1.1 version site could get would be a B+, or maybe an A-, I don't really recall. Well, a B+ was not acceptable to Mr. Executive, so I was told, "Hey OP, you really need to get IT to get an A+ on that score. Our customers might see the B+. Now, it's ridiculous on the face of it that random customers would even know about that test or place any faith in it or whatever. Not my job to disagree as a consultant, so I agreed. I talked to the security guys in IT, and they said that trying to get their servers to speak the new version would break the client software running in the field, which was limited to 1.1. So I wrote a long freaking email explaining all the nuance to Mr. Executive. And I charged them for the hours that I spent running the stupid tests, writing the stupid change plan, etc. A fair amount of money in billing. He decides that he's gonna use his authority through me to get this change made. He tells me that he's counting on me to intermediate this process. I tell him in polite consultant terms that it will be dumb to do that, he can just talk to IT. He tells me that IT never sees the big picture, just go ahead and bill him for this. So I spend billable time rewriting all his half-butt notes and forward them to IT. IT responds back with their same response and a timeline of 18 months to get the software rewritten. I spend time rewriting this into nonsense that this particular executive can understand and send it off along with a bill. This literally goes on for 6 months. He sends me notes, I rephrase and send to IT. IT responds and I rewrite and forward. This was not the main work I was doing for them, but it delighted me because I could count on at least 5 to 10 hours a week of back and forth between this idiot and his own IT team. No matter how often I mentioned that a couple of meetings could clear all this up, he insisted that I bill him. So I did. If this was you and you saw this going on and on and on and knew that you could keep billing them and it would be consistent, easy money, would you just kind of be silent about the whole meeting thing and just let it keep perpetuating and kind of raking in the cash out of this executive? Or is morally that just too wrong of a thing to do? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Professor Clever Trousers. You want copies? You get copies. I like computers. I learned Java and how to set up computers, but I'm largely self-taught with no professional computing qualifications, and while I don't work with them professionally, I like to muck about with computers in my spare time. Many years ago, I worked for a small business that employed around 40 or 50 people. One day, one of the managers reported that her computer had locked up completely and stopped working. The boss gets a technician to take a look, who tells him the problem is beyond his ability to solve. He calls an expert, about comes in, checks it over, and says it'll make a good doorstop but nothing else. The boss isn't happy because nothing on this computer has been backed up and there are some really useful vital files on it. I hear all about it and suggest that maybe I could have a look. The boss tells me the expert declared it dead, so knock yourself out, and expects nothing will come of it. I took it home, pulled out the hard drive, slaved it to my computer, ran some recovery software, and hey presto, started pulling out files. Yay me! I contacted the boss after I'd run it, telling him I'd successfully recovered some 97% of the lost files, including some videos. I ask him if he wanted just one main copy and a backup, and he says he wants extra copies for other managers, so that the data is backed up on more computers, and he'll pay for the cost and for my time in making the copies. I tell him that the videos probably should not be distributed, but before I can explain, he says, "I don't care why, I want them distributed." Cue malicious compliance. Okay, you're the boss. Multiple copies are made, multiple copies are distributed. I handed him his copy in person. I then told him that I thought the videos were not appropriate for distribution and wanted to talk to him about them. "Okay," he said, "what's the problem?" I had to explain that these videos were added prior to the date that the current manager, whose computer they were on, started working for the company, so logically they were not her fault, but the fault of her predecessor. The boss said that it sounded serious and wanted to know what the videos contained. I asked to talk to him more privately and, having done so, told him that it was gay adult entertainment, about 10 or 12 videos, copies of which I had made on his instructions, copies of which had been distributed on his instructions. He got the copies recalled in record time and asked me to redo them without any video content. He paid me again for doing so. The icing on the cake was the discovery that, apparently, it was originally his computer. No wonder it got recalled in record time, considering that revelation at the very end there. Yikes. I think in the future, even if the boss is a little aggressive in saying that they want everything, there are some things you can just leave out. Our next story is by Victoria Is Me Vix. I can only wear black? Okay. This was 2018. I had been accepted to uni to study fashion makeup. Uni meant no uniforms, except for our class. Because we were classed as a beauty therapy class, we were told to look professional. We had to wear black and preferably not jeans. I objected strongly because I didn't want to just have to wear what felt like a uniform. And to be honest, I got away with wearing bright red tartan clothes purely because my lecturer liked them. But the rule did still get brought up a lot, so I decided to comply. For the rest of the year, I only wore black. I wore a ball gown, I went full bondage goth, I had fishnets and swing dresses, vintage steampunk. It was always in keeping with the no jeans and black rule, so I never got told off for it. All I'm gonna say is it takes some serious confidence to show up to your uni class in full bondage goth attire. My hat's off to them. Or mask or… anyways. This next story is by Lethal Teapot. I'm sorry, you have to ask reception to connect you to a long-distance call. Okay. Back in the 90s, I was a junior reporter on a northern UK provincial paper. Newspaper companies were and still are legendary cheapskates and will find the most unbelievable ways to try and save even small amounts of money. Bearing in mind, this is long before the days of email. We relied on our phones to speak to anyone we needed to contact. These were mostly local calls, but there were quite a lot of agencies we might need to ask for responses to our stories that would be out of our area. For reasons lost to the mists of time, I needed to ring a press office that was somewhere down south. Let's say Bristol, for argument's sake. I tried to make the call. I got a dead tone. I tried again. The same. I borrowed a colleague's phone, just in case mine wasn't working. I still couldn't get through. So I rang our receptionist Jane, a terribly refined Scot, but with the soul of a rebel. She loved the editorial department. Our news editor used to sneak her a glass of wine from whatever boozer he was in when she rang around trying to find him when the editor was on the rampage looking for him. I say, "Jane, I'm trying to ring X press office and I can't get through. Is there something up with the phones?" Jane asks, "Where is that office?" I say, "Bristol, why?" She says, "That explains it. You can't ring long distance." I say, "Sorry, what? I can't ring long distance? Why not?" Jane says, "Didn't anyone tell your department? The MD decided it and the phones have been limited from today to save money on the phone bill. You have to ring through to reception to ask for a long distance number and I have to dial it for you." I say, "Really? That sounds like a really stupid idea." Jane says, "I know, but it's out of my hands." I turned to our news editor and told him. He laughed and then realized I wasn't joking. There ensued a short period of the reporters ringing numbers for places at varying distances from our office. Where we worked out, there was about a 10-mile radius before we had to ask reception to be connected. Our news editor wasn't having this. Cue the malicious compliance. He rang Jane and profusely apologized for what we were about to do to her, and then commanded us to ask to be put through any number anywhere in the country for the rest of the morning. We spent the next 2 hours completely swamping our poor solo receptionist with requests to be put through to long-distance numbers. I made the call to the press office that I needed to make in the first place, but I also had a lovely chat with my aunt in Manchester and my sister in Scotland. There were about 20 of us in total, non-stop asking for long-distance calls to be put through, meaning Jane could barely answer another call or deal with visitors until we broke for lunch. Needless to say, we came in the next day to find our right to make long-distance calls was reinstated. I'm definitely all for what the editorial crew did here. When upper management tries to make some kind of cost-saving procedure that just totally undercuts how efficient you can do your job, that's incredibly frustrating for anybody, and I'm glad to see that they got their rights reinstated. This next story is by After Call Work. Management wants us to do it their way? Fine. A while ago, I used to work in an outbound call center. We were hired by a fairly large cell phone company to do business acquisition for them. My job was to call consumer customers that had a business to try and get them on our business plan. Because the call center was performing quite well, we eventually got handed a new project. I had done quite well previously, so I was one of the agents that was assigned to this new project. We would call customers 4 months before their contract expired to make them an offer on renewing their contract with us. This is very important because you were allowed to renew your current contract 4 months before your contract expired, but your contract was not yet free. During our training, we got an explanation as to how we were put in the orders. We had to make a new customer account and make the order in there. This was strange because there was literally a renew button in the existing customer contract, and the contracts were not yet free. We tried to point it out during the training, but management insisted this is how we were to do things. Very well. Fast forward like a month. The project was doing quite well and we had a lot of orders, probably a couple per hour. A while later, our management got some messages from higher-ups. They were freaking livid with us because every single order we had placed had been put in the system incorrectly and thus not been processed. It turns out you have to use the renew button when you renew a contract. Who would have thought? We had to call back every freaking customer we had sold a new contract to tell them, hey, yeah, your contract wasn't renewed properly. You still want to be with us? I quit shortly after that, and I heard from some colleagues the call center was let go from the company very quickly as well. Forget negligent management. It definitely doesn't sound like an end goal job necessarily, and hopefully in the end you still got your commissions out of that or however you do get paid, because having that happen at the very end is a pretty yikes situation. And our final story of the day is by a Naughty Mouseketeer 90s throwback from my mom. So this is my mom's story that she literally just told me. When I was about 5, I got chickenpox. No big deal for me. I barely noticed and just had a fun week home from school playing Power Rangers. My mom, however, realized that at age 33 she had never had the chickenpox, and she was pretty sure I had now given it to her. She was right. She found what I think is referred to as the leading spot. So she called her manager at work, she worked at Tesco, a big supermarket chain in the UK, and told her that although she felt fine, she was pretty sure she had the pox. Her manager, let's call her Karen for reasons that will become obvious, says tersely, "If you feel fine, come in for work then." So in my mom goes. She spends hours sitting at the checkout, scanning items and handling money, until a supervisor from the bakery department happens to wander by and physically recoils as he sees that my mom now has visible spots manifesting on her arms and neck. The supervisor says, "You have chicken pox?" Mom says, "Yep." Supervisor says, "Why the heck are you here?" Mom says, "I told Karen, but she told me to come in anyway." supervisor went straight to Karen and demanded she let my mother go home. Obviously pissed at being tattled on and having her stupid actions be made apparent to other coworkers, Karen tried to take it out on my mom in some small way by demanding she get a doctor's note. So my mom went straight from work to the doctor, who told her, confused, that she could have just stayed home for a week, maybe even only a few days. She didn't need to see a doctor for chickenpox. Well, when my mom told him her manager had demanded a doctor's note, he said fine and signed her off work for 2 weeks, right before Christmas. To be fair, if I was that doctor and someone came in and said, I have to get a note to be able to stay home from my work because my manager wants me to come in that bad and disregard other people, I would be pretty darn upset too, and I would have no qualm making sure that they got to stay off plenty of time to recuperate away from work. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.